Hi, this is Paul Slack. It's Good News Planet. I'm speaking to Amy Newmark. Hi, Amy. How are you?
I am great. How are you, Paul?
Okay, good. I've been reading Chicken Soup for the Soul, the 20th anniversary edition. There's a 2 anniversary book set the stage for inspiration and impact for the next 20 years. Congratulations, Amy.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited about our 20th anniversary. We're celebrating it for a full year, and we did put out these 2 special books for the 20th anniversary. So it's really been a lot of fun celebrating it, and the celebration continues.
All righty. We like celebrations, and we love chicken soup. I believe, I've probably done maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen stories with some of the authors over the past 15 years that we've been doing Good News. And each one is a gem, and each one's a pleasure. And I have no idea how you could select out of probably millions that you could send to you. How do you do that?
You know, it's hard. I sometimes feel so awful when I'm rejecting a really fabulous story. It must be the way college admissions officers feel when they reject all of these fabulous kids, because we get thousands of stories submitted for each book, and we only publish 101 stories. So I'm like the biggest curator, right? This is all user-generated content, speaking in today's vernacular.
There you go.
And I am curating it. I'm taking 5,000 submissions and picking 101 to share with our readers. And so I do feel bad. Sometimes I reject stories from people I know. I've rejected stories from my own children.
Oh, no!
Yeah, I have. But you know what? We have to keep the standards very, very high. And if a story isn't quite right, we're not going to publish it no matter who it's from. It has to be exactly what we're looking for and exactly what we think our readers will benefit from.
Oh, my God. Not from your mother and from that. No, I'm okay. All right. Well, let's now talk. Obviously, you're the real McCoy in that regard, and the original Chicken Soup for the Soul. So let's talk about all your favorite original stories plus 20 bonus stories for the next 20 years. So when you mean the next 20 years, those are stories that will be that we can hold in our hearts for some time.
Yeah, you know, the original Chicken Soup for the Soul book came out in 1993. It has sold more than 8 million copies just in the U.S. and Canada. It was, number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Just a runaway success story, a real publishing phenomenon. USA Today said it was one of the books with the most impact of any book in the last quarter century. So for the 20th anniversary, I wanted to reissue the original Chicken Soup for the Soul book, but I wanted to give something extra to our readers. So we went out to what we call today's thought leaders. We got new stories written for the book from Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen. Those were our 2 founders. I wrote a story for it. We got a story from Deepak Chopra. Dr. Oz wrote an original story for the book. Tony Robbins gave us a story. All of these new people, the younger group of motivational speakers who are out there now, Chris Carr, Nick Ortner, all these people. And so we have these 20 bonus stories. And I think the original Chicken Soup for the Soul, as I reread it, remained very relevant. And with these 20 bonus stories, I think will remain relevant for another 20 years. So it was a really exciting project. And it was really gratifying to see how these really well-known authors and speakers were so willing to give us stories. And we did sweeten the pot a little. We are donating royalties from this book to a literacy program that will promote literacy throughout the world. So it's very consistent with our mission to use this book not only to make our readers have better lives, but also to do good with some of the profits from the book.
Wow, that's great. And if you send us an email or something about that, we'll broadcast that as well.
Okay, we'll do that.
Specifically, that organization. That's a good thing. Because I've been a lucky guy, and I've almost everybody who you just mentioned I've interviewed over these past years are on Good News, And even now, I even see you have Gabrielle Bernstein, a friend, and you know, it. Every story usually is just such a uplifting, human comment about the goodness of people. Is that what it is? What is it for you personally? Since you're one of the authors.
And I mean, I'm not sure what your definition of good news is, but our definition is that we can acknowledge that bad things happen, but we want to show the resilience of the human spirit, how people deal with even the negative things that are out there and come through as stronger people and make a success of their lives. Anyway, most of our stories are written by ordinary people who really have become extraordinary people because of the way they handled certain situations, and they are real role models for all of us. We do publish plenty of stories where it's all good news from beginning to end, but we also publish stories where something bad happens and somebody handles it in such an inspiring, uplifting way that we read it and we're empowered to handle what's going on in our lives as well, whether it's a massive problem or just one of those pesky everyday problems.
What are the two saddest words?
Oh, yes. That's the story I wrote. I think that the two saddest words in the English language are if only. And I can't say I spend a lot of time, because it doesn't take a lot of time to avoid having to say those words, but it takes a little time regularly to try to keep those two awful words, if only, out of my life. So it means making sure that you take that extra 5 seconds or even that extra minute to do something right, whether it's doing something right at work, whether it's making sure that door to the pool deck closed behind you, that you heard it click, to making sure you put a seat belt on even if you're driving half a mile, making sure that your fireplace ashes are 30 feet away from your house when you put them out for the garbage man to pick them up so that you don't burn your house down by accident. And it's also avoiding saying the words if only in your personal relationships. And I gave an example of that in the story that I wrote for this book, which was that my father told me that he was going to the eye doctor who's across from my office a few months ago on Good Friday, and I told my father that we were closed for Good Friday. And then I thought about it, and I thought, my father's 84 years old. I should never give up an opportunity to see him. So I called him back, and I said, guess what? We've decided to work on Good Friday. And I went to the office just to be there, before and after his eye doctor appointment. But nothing, of course, happened to my father. He's completely fine. But I wanted to avoid an if-only moment there. You never want to say, if only I had called that guy back, if only I had taken a few minutes to see that person. So that's what my story is about. I have a lot of peace of mind because I do try to run my life in such a way that I avoid having to say, if only.
We're on the very same page in life, and we do our best to try to live that way. And and things do happen, and situations occur. And I guess the nice thing, or some of the nice things that you're saying, is we still have a chance, though, to say, I'm sorry. Even let's make amends from situations that have occurred in our lives. So in other words, a lot of times if someone passes, I know even Chicken Soup has had it for books on when someone leaves us, right?
Oh, definitely.
We want to have hope. My brother-in-law, the doctor, said to me, with your dad, you were lucky. You had said mostly everything that you had wanted to say. There was no lingering. I mean, that's not a good feeling, right? If you have anybody out there that has something lingering with some family member or friend or whatever, it's a good thing to get it off your chest, right, and to share it. What's your
my
thought?
father-in-law turned 91 last January, and he decided that he was going to die. He just decided that he was tired, he was sick, he didn't feel good, and it was over. He wanted to go. And so he announced to everybody, I've decided I'm going to die now. And he had everybody come and see him. And he had his last words with everyone, which was great. because everybody got to say everything. He got to tell his children he was proud of them, express all of those things that sometimes a man has trouble saying. Then, of course, he didn't die. The next morning he woke up and he said, "Am I dead yet?" And his daughter said, "No, Dad, you're not dead." And then the next morning he woke up, "Debbie, am I dead yet?" "No, Dad, you're not dead." Well, he did die 6 months later on his own terms, but the great thing was that he had done exactly what you're saying. Everyone had a chance to say those last things. And we actually do get a lot of stories about that and about forgiveness. And I decided to do a book on forgiveness. Actually, you're the first person to hear about this. I haven't even announced it yet.
Thank you.
To our sales force, but I'm planning to do a book in 2014 about the power of forgiveness.
It's extraordinary. The whole Buddhist spirit is built around forgiveness and compassion, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Well, great. That sounds good. So let me tell. First of all, you have such great people that are saying what people are saying about chicken soup, as always. Even our good friend Wally Amos there. And so on love is the first section, and then you have learning to love yourself, which is a key to happiness, right?
Absolutely. If you don't love yourself, you can't really get anywhere in life.
They say that, right? It's a good place to start.
Yes, it is. And we have a lot of stories in all of our books where we talk about self-esteem. We really help people to feel good about themselves, to reintroduce themselves to themselves. Look in the mirror and say, "Oh, yeah, I like that person." We do a lot of that. We're very careful with things like dieting stories to make it clear how people's bodies are, just go for the best body within the body type that you have. And we're very, very careful about that in our teen books. We're all about self-esteem. So, yeah, that's an important chapter in the Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
Yeah, it's great on learning, live your dream, on parenting. Oh, boy. Overcoming obstacles, a ton of stories on that. And that's in the original Chicken Soup for the Soul, all your favorite original stories, plus the 20 bonus stories for the next 20 years. Now, the other book.
Thing we did.
Oh, okay.
So talking about how we have such an impact on people, I got an email, I think it was a couple of years ago, from a young military wife. Her husband had just been deployed to Afghanistan, and she had discovered our book, Chicken Soup for the Military Wife's Soul. And she had gone out and gotten it at the base. She started reading it one night. She read a few stories, including one by a young wife who talked about how her husband lost his leg and, how the family dealt with the fact that he was an amputee. And this young wife thought about what she would do if her husband were in that position. She went to sleep, and 8 hours later, in the morning, she got the phone call from her husband, who had been airlifted to the military hospital in Germany from Afghanistan, and his leg had been blown off and part of his hand. And he was coming home to Walter Reed, and she was so prepared for that phone call because of our book. And she wrote us this letter, and I was blown away by it. And I said, you know what, I am making a whole book with this kind of story, and decided to do it for our 20th anniversary. So her story is in the book, along with 50 other people writing stories about unbelievable experiences they had where a Chicken Soup for the Soul story changed their lives. And what they did was they wrote us a new story, a new Chicken Soup for the Soul story about the experience, and then we paired it with the old story that had influenced them or had such a great impact on them.
This is so beautiful. Amy, I imagine you have a great opportunity here to cry a lot.
When we first got involved with Chicken Soup for the Soul 6 years ago, and I was deciding, what I was going to do, whether I would become the publisher, I read about 100 of the old books, and I wasn't that familiar with them. I really only knew the original Chicken Soup for the Soul. I don't know how I was so obtuse, but I had just missed all of those different titles that had come out. And I had no idea what to expect, and I started reading a book a day. and I had to go and get new contact lenses because I was destroying my contact lenses with all the salt in my tears. And I was laughing and I was crying, and I thought, wow, these stories are really powerful. I never expected to feel this way, especially since I had come from a background as a hedge fund manager, a Wall Street analyst, a business executive. I was rough and tough, right? And there I am with tears rolling down my cheeks reading these stories. But they really do reach you. I mean, I came from Wall Street where the only emotions were fear and greed, and I was confronted with the whole panoply of human emotions. And it's terrific. I think I've become a much nicer person as a result of doing this job.
You had a catharsis, I think.
I sure did. I opened myself up to all of humanity. I'm feeling it all now.
That's beautiful. Well, last thing then, we could talk for a long time, I got a feeling here. So, and we'll talk again, if that's good with you. And so I usually ask everybody what's good news for them. So what's good news for you, Amy?
Well, no matter what you're doing at work, no matter where your career takes you, what really matters is your family, right? And the legacy that you leave is your family. It doesn't matter if I leave 200 books behind with my name on them. What really matters is my kids and my potential grandchildren. And so my good news is that 2 of our 4 children are getting married in 2014. So that's what I really care about.
Well, that's beautiful. Hey, I'm just going to throw it in for the fun of it. I'm an interfaith minister.
I have no idea what they're doing in that regard, but one is getting married in New York State and one in Massachusetts.
Well, I can marry anybody anywhere. So, but it's all good. Congratulations. That is one of the happiest moments of a parent's life, to see their child happy in that way. So. And then the next one is when they have the grandkids.
Oh, my gosh, I can't wait. Right now I'm just settling for the grand dogs. I have 2 grand dogs, and I mean, I buy them Christmas presents. I'm like a doting grandmother for the dogs because it's all I've got.
All right, you're working sideways. Let's
That's
say, because
true.
dogs are equal, too. They're very important. All right, well, Amy, thanks so much for sharing good news with us.
Well,
Pleasure
thank you, Paul, for your whole company. It's a great mission that you have.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.